AI, specifically generative AI, is as much the talk in China as it is in the US. In fact, Chinese officials recently went through a second round of consultations for rules to regulate generative AI systems. And that makes them much further along than Washington in terms of enacting rules for the new technology. China's three biggest companies, Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, all referenced their work on it on company earnings calls this month. Tech executives hailing the shift as the tech equivalent to the development of smartphones and the internet. For more on this and to better understand what's happening in China, Rebecca Fannin, the founder of Silicon Dragon Ventures and author of new book, Silicon Heartland. So welcome to the show. I know, we've been discussing this now for several months in terms of the AI on our special segment, but we haven't really talked about China in particular and what their plans are or aren't. We know the two sides obviously are playing a little bit of catch up to each other, and there's some competitive nature to this. But in terms of China, they have all the pieces in place to not only have AI, which they've been working on for a while, they have most of the chips, or some of the chips, I guess, although that's controversial, but now they're talking about regulation already. What kind of regulation are they doing?
Right. Well, China has been advancing very fast in AI, and now it's advancing extremely fast in regulating AI. Privacy and trust issues and credibility issues and transparency issues, those are all on the line in China and for businesses in China.
When we talk about generative AI, often we think about machine learning as well. In other words, the ability for a computer to essentially teach itself and make its own decisions without or with very limited human input. And one of the concerns about this AI technology is that I can teach a computer to listen to this interview, I can teach a computer to listen to what's happening in the news, and the computer itself can order or direct things to happen that it has the ability to, and ultimately what we're worried about is that the computer overtakes the human or beats the human to inciting or instigating a particular event. I mean, isn't that one of the main concerns, and how's China planning on controlling that?
Right, it is a big issue, and last year China addressed the issue of deepfakes, where you can have someone, an imposter, someone who looks exactly like someone else, sounds exactly like someone else, who could be, creating some social unrest. So that is an issue today, and China is trying to control this from breaking apart. So I think China is very smart in moving ahead and taking the lead on these kinds of regulations. We need to have this trust built into AI for consumers to continue to use it and for it to continue to offer the benefits that it offers. I mean, there are risks involved and hazards involved, but there are also a lot of benefits involved with AI. It's been developing very rapidly over the past 6 to 8 years. And China is ahead on its development. Now China is ahead in its regulations on AI as well. Now, whether that could actually hurt innovation in the long run, that's the question. Whether the US side is more lax than China is in regulating AI, whether that's a better model, still to be proven. But the question is, AI is here to stay, and we need to deal with it. And both China and US are dealing with it now, and we'll have to see what regulations do come into place. Because right now they are in development.
Rebecca, we've seen headlines that the U.S. is restricting some types of chips, advanced chips, from being exported into China. Most recently, we saw China ban Micron technology chips from entering the country. So both sides are seemingly doing some political moves here, but ultimately, is there going to be some concrete differences in terms of how the AI is developed based upon the technology? And I guess the second half of this question is, does China have all the chips they need to continue development? Do they need these other chips?
Right. Well, obviously the same AI race is on, and the chip race is on as well. The chip war is on. So, yes, China is moving ahead with chips development and AI development, and the U.S. has a lead on the design capabilities of the chips, but China is catching up very rapidly. and China is determined to be a leader in this AI race. So are there enough chips to go around with exports on them? I mean, China needs to develop its own chip capability and needs to pay more attention to its own capabilities if we're going to have these kinds of restrictions where China was more dependent upon the US for chip design, chip manufacturing, chip lead. So yeah, it continues to be a very big issue.
The challenge of regulation, going back to that, I mean, we haven't figured that out here in Washington. We're still gathering, I guess, data points and intel, but we've seen a number of very high-profile private citizens, from people who actually were part of the creation of AI, warned the federal government of the dangers of AI. From China's perspective, what are the challenges that they're going to face in terms of drafting this regulatory environment? And I'm guessing that's really just for China, but other countries can, of course, take a look at it and go, you know, this makes sense or doesn't make sense, and we need to adopt some of these regulations.
Well, there are different models coming forward about how to regulate it. The U.S. has a certain model, and the European Union has a different model, and China has its own model, which is much more vertical into markets. So each one of these models are going to be struggling to keep up with the innovation that's occurring in AI. I mean, how can you keep up with the pace of what's going on? You know, you can't ask a government, which really maybe doesn't really have that kind of technology that a private sector company has to develop this, or OpenAI has to develop it. So this is continuing to be a major issue, and yeah, we're going to see how it plays out from Europe to the U.S. to China, and which kind of regulatory system works best. We are still learning. And a lot of lessons to be learned.
I have so many questions. By the way, you can't see this, but we're showing video of what appears to be robots from the movie Terminator in real life, though. And I can't help but have a million more questions after watching that, but we have to leave it there for now. Rebecca, thank you.